Hello everyone. Welcome to Tell Stories. I am going to narrate the story of the Elves and the Shoemaker. Once upon a time, there was an honest shoemaker who was very poor. He worked as hard as he could, and still he could not earn enough to keep himself and his wife happy. At last, there came a day when he had nothing left but one piece of leather that was big enough to make one pair of shoes. He cut out the shoes, ready to stitch, and left them on the bench. Then he said his prayers and went to bed, trusting that he could finish the shoes the next day and sell them. Early the next morning, he rose and went to his workbench and discovered there a pair of shoes, beautifully made. The leather was gone and there was no sign of anyone having been there. The shoemaker and his wife did not know what to make of it. Then the first customer who came was so pleased with the beautiful shoes that she bought them. From that money, the shoemaker was able to buy leather enough for 2 pairs. But when morning came, 2 pairs of shoes lay on the bench, most beautifully made, and no sign of anyone who had been there. That day, a customer came and bought both pairs. Now the shoemaker had enough money to buy leather for making 4 pairs of shoes. Once more, he cut out the shoes and left them on the bench. As before, the next morning, he discovered that all 4 pairs were made. It went on like this until the shoemaker and his wife were prosperous. They were concerned. They could not be so satisfied to have so much done for them and not know to whom they should be grateful. So one night, after the shoemaker had left the pieces of leather on the bench, he and his wife hid themselves behind a curtain and left a light in the room. Just as the clock struck 12, the door opened softly and 2 tiny elves came dancing into the room, hopped on the bench and began to put the pieces together. They were quiet. They made little conversation, and they had brought tiny scissors and hammers and thread. Tap, tap went the little hammers. Stitch, stitch went the thread, and the little elves were hard at work. No one ever worked so fast as they. In almost no time, all the shoes were stitched and finished. Then the little creatures whisked away out of the window. The shoemaker and his wife looked at each other and said, "How can we thank the little elves who have made us happy and prosperous?" "I should make them some pretty clothes," said the wife. "I will make the shoes if you will make the coats," said her husband. That very day they started working on the surprise for the elves. The wife cut out 2 tiny coats of green, 2 little pairs of trousers of white, and 2 very small caps of bright red. Her husband made 2 little pairs of shoes with long, pointed toes. They made the clothes as good looking as could be, with nice little stitches and pretty buttons. By Christmas time, they were finished. On Christmas Eve, the shoemaker cleaned his bench, and instead of leather, he laid the 2 sets of clothes and 2 pairs of shoes on it. Then he and his wife hid away as before to watch. Promptly at midnight, the little elves came in. They hopped up on the bench, but when they saw their little clothes there, they laughed and danced out of joy. Each one caught up his little coat and shoes and began to put them on. They were so happy. Then, when the clock struck 2, they left smiling. They never came back anymore, but from that day, they gave the shoemaker and his wife good luck, so that they never needed any more help. That's the end. For more such interesting stories, please subscribe to our channel, Tell Stories.